What's happening, guys? It's Shane here, and in today's video, we're gonna be going over the major difficulty tier list. So we're gonna be talking about a lot of different college degrees and how difficult they are, and we're gonna be ranking them from S tier, which is the most difficult, to F tier, which is the least. Now, if you appreciate me doing videos like this, go ahead, gently tap that like button, hit the subscribe button, ring the notification bell, and let's jump right into it. All right, so we're gonna be doing this in alphabetical order, and we're gonna start off with an accounting degree. So accounting is a business degree. Business degrees are relatively easy, but accounting is gonna be one of the more rigorous ones. So this one is gonna go into B tier. Now, by the way, guys, I'm not really gonna explain my rankings. If I explain my rankings, this would be like a 40-minute video. So to keep this short, I'm just gonna be giving you my opinions. I'm not really gonna elaborate on anything. Aerospace engineering is going to be next, and this one is clearly S tier, very, very difficult degree. Another thing I should mention is degree difficulty is extremely subjective. For one person, an engineering degree might be relatively easy, whereas they'd have more trouble with an English degree. But with that being said, there are some objective things we can measure, like dropout rates, how long students study every month, how stressed students get, etc. Next one on the list is going to be anthropology. So this one, actually surprisingly difficult. It's not like a super, cushy, easy degree to get. It's gonna go into C tier. Next one is going to be architecture. So this is one of those degrees where you actually have to have quite a bit of kind of like right brain and left brain thinking at the same time. So it definitely has an artistic and a logical component to it. And this is the one where students spend the most amount of time studying per week. So architecture is going to go into A tier. Art is going to be next on the list, and this is just art in general. They'll probably keep you relatively busy doing different projects, but objectively, it's just not all that difficult because, you're gonna submit your art assignment and you're gonna get your grade. Art is super subjective. You could make some piece of art that one person thinks is amazing, another person thinks it's terrible. But with that being said, they do spend quite a bit of time on their art, so this one goes into C tier. Next one on the list is biology. Now, this is one that a lot of people think is interesting and it's really easy, and in reality, it's actually a pretty difficult major. Many people are extremely surprised at how rigorous biology is. So this one is actually gonna go into A tier. Next one on the list is going to be biomedical engineering, and I think it's going to speak volumes when I put this one into A tier because I'm very picky about which ones I put into S. So yeah, this one goes into A tier. Next one on the list is going to be business in general, kind of like a general business degree, business administration. This one goes into C tier. Chemical engineering is the next one on the list, one of the most difficult degrees out there. This one goes into S tier. Chemistry is next on the list, really difficult one, a lot harder than a lot of people think. I'm gonna put this one in A tier, and it's borderline S tier actually. Next one on the list is going to be civil engineering. This one is one of the easier engineering degrees. It's not easy by any means, but even the easier engineering degrees are gonna be pretty difficult, so this one's going into A tier. Next one on the list is going to be communications. This is the one that a lot of people, if they're like football players or basketball players, they'll get a communication degree because it's pretty easy to get. You basically just have to show up to the classes and that's all. There's not a whole lot of studying on the side. It's relatively easy to pass the classes, right? Like you might not pass the classes with an A, but if you just want to pass the classes, you show up, do your thing, and that's it. So communications is going to go into D tier. Computer engineering is going to be the next one on the list. This one goes into A tier. Computer science is next. This one also goes into A tier. A lot of people underestimate computer science. They think it's relatively easy, when in reality, it's actually pretty tough. Creative writing is next on the list. This one goes into F tier. Super, super easy degree overall. Dance is next on the list. This also goes into F tier. Economics is next. This one goes into B tier, although at some schools they have much more of a focus on mathematics. And so in that case, it would go into A tier, but overall, I'm gonna put it into B tier. Education is gonna be next on the list. Education is relatively easy. It's one of those degrees that, I always recommend. Try to go to an accelerated school or a competency-based school so you can get it as fast as possible. Education goes into F tier. And I know this is probably super controversial. People are gonna be mad at me. Listen, let me know down in the comments. Let me know what I was right about, what I was wrong about. At the end of the day, this is extremely subjective. Take it all with a grain of salt. Electrical engineering is next on the list. One thing about electrical engineering is it's extremely theoretical, and it's kind of difficult for you to envision in your head. Now, some people can do that really easily. Some people it's very difficult. But overall, electrical engineering does make it into S tier. Engineering physics is next on the list. This one actually ranked #1 on the most recent, most difficult degrees list that I did. And yeah, definitely goes into S tier. English is gonna be next on the list. You know, this one is gonna keep you relatively busy, but in terms of passing with an English degree, I mean, it's not all that hard, right? You might not get like a 4.0 or anything like that, but if you show up, turn in all your assignments, you're gonna pass. You're gonna graduate in 4 years. So English goes into C tier. And actually, I have to say, one of the most difficult classes I took was an advanced English class, but that's because I was trying to get an A in the class, right? So getting an A in classes like this is pretty difficult, but getting a B or a C is not all that hard. Next one on the list is going to be finance. So finance is kind of in the same realm as accounting. Kind of depends on the school you go to, how difficult it is, but overall, I'm gonna put it into B tier. Geography is next on the list. This one goes into C tier. Geology is next. This one goes into B tier. History is gonna be next on the list. This one goes into C tier. Industrial engineering is next. It's one of the easiest engineering degrees in my opinion, but it still goes into A tier. Interdisciplinary studies, this is basically like your jack of all trades sort of thing. You sample a little bit of everything. Interdisciplinary studies goes into F tier. Journalism, this one, again, probably gonna keep you relatively busy, but overall it's gonna go into C tier. Language degrees in general, you've got a very long period of time in order to learn the language. Overall, I'm gonna put this one into D tier. Management information systems, one of the more technical business degrees, also probably my favorite business degree overall. This one goes into B tier. Marketing is next on the list, not too hard. This one goes into C tier. Mathematics is next on the list. This one almost makes it into S tier, but not quite. I'm gonna go ahead and put it into A tier. Mechanical engineering is next on the list. This one goes into A tier. Microbiology is gonna be next. This one has some of the highest study time actually, but overall, you know, the course and the concepts that you're studying, they're not that difficult. It just takes a lot of memorization. So this one goes into A tier. Music is next on the list.
It may sound easy, but nothing could be harder.
Definitely gonna keep you very busy. You'll be practicing your instrument all the time, but again, it's not that hard to pass. This one goes into D tier. Nuclear engineering is gonna be next. This one goes into A tier. Nursing is gonna be next on the list. Contrary to popular belief, this one is not all that hard. It's gonna go into B tier. Petroleum engineering is gonna be next. This one goes into A tier. Physics, yes, physics is next. Very, very difficult degree. The average person who gets a physics degree, I've talked about this in my last video, is a borderline genius, right? So physics, super difficult one, super difficult conceptually, and they're also gonna keep you very busy. This one goes into S tier. Political science is gonna be next on the list. They're gonna keep you busy, but not all that difficult. This one goes into C tier. Public relations is D tier. Religion and theology, D tier. Social work, I'm gonna put this one into C tier. Sociology goes into D tier. Statistics, my personal weakness, I don't know what it is. I don't really like statistics at all. I like every other type of math except for statistics. It's just very boring to me. It makes me want to fall asleep, even though I've used it many times. Statistics goes into A tier. Theater or drama, this one goes into F tier. And finally, pre-med or any type of degree track where you have to get really good grades in order to get accepted. So for instance, if you're doing like pre-law and you're trying to get accepted to a really good school, you know, the classes you take might not be all that difficult, but you have to get A's in all of them, which is super, super hard. So in that case, pre-med, I'm gonna go ahead and put that into A tier. And that also goes for pre-law as well if you're trying to get into a top level school, or any, you know, pre-professional degree if you're trying to do super well and get to a really good school.